Melissa Killeleagh. We're here in the Finger Lakes One TV studio. It's October 17th, 2017, and we are officially at day 365, 1-year anniversary for the Melissa Killeleagh Show. So I want to say a huge thank you to Jim Sinacropi for hosting the show. We're going to have some time together in studio to chat in a little bit, but I wanted to do something really special for this show and revisit some of the guests we've had over the past year. So I went through all of our episodes, and we had over 25 guests, including Jim, in the past year, with over 15 of those guests in studio with us here. And I reached back out to a number of them to see if anyone wanted to share their feedback on some of the segments that we've done over the past year. So if you haven't watched the show before, I love to chat on women who are making the world a better place, men who make a difference in our lives, things out and about in the community in the Finger Lakes, as well as wrapping up with ideas and inspiration to leave our viewers with every time we get together. So today that's what we're going to do, except for I'm going to pass the torch to some of our previous guests. And after you hear from a few of them, we are actually going to chat in studio. We may have a visit from a neighbor, kind of like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood style, if she gets to drop by. That's Peg House Arliss, who's here in the same building with us. But in the meantime, we're going to kick it off with Katie McIntyre and Heidi Lindecker, who joined me to share their feedback on those segments. So take it away, ladies. All right, everybody. We are here with a couple of guests from this past year on the Melissa Killeleagh Show. It's Katie McIntyre and Heidi Lindecker. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have some fun letting them share their reflections on the segments we typically have in the show. So we're going to talk about women who make the world a better place, men who make a difference, out and about in our community, and ideas and inspiration to wrap up. So why don't we start with you, Katie? And for your first round, if you would share just quickly, like your background, your title, like who you are, in case someone hasn't watched the episode that you're on, and they'll probably want to go back and do so afterwards. And then let's start with a woman who has made the world a better place, in your opinion. So, Katie,
Okay.
You want to kick it off?
Sure. So I am Katie McIntyre. I work at Generations Bank. I run the marketing department. And I do a couple other things too. I think when I was on the show with Melissa earlier in the year, I was talking about running the Boston Marathon this past April. So that was a big achievement for me this year. So Melissa, I would share someone who we both know. Her name is Angela Dadavo. And she has definitely made the world a better place. She's a woman who I met when I first moved to Central New York in 2005. And she is the artistic director and one of the creators of Auburn Public Theater, and has just done fantastic things. And it's awesome to see the dream that she had when she moved back to Auburn from LA to have this public theater. And it's come to fruition, and it's an amazing place in the community and in the region.
Yeah, and I only just met her recently because of you. Thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome.
And I would have to agree. So thank you for sharing. We'll definitely have to have her on the show soon.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Heidi, how about you?
My woman who's made the world a better place is she's a woman who I've known my entire life. So from the time I was a little child, her name is Nancy Peters. And she has a private practice in Akron, New York, and she works as a healer. And over the years, she has done trainings in everything from somatics and Reiki and craniosacral and Lomi. And she also is an OT. And so by training, she does this amazing thing, and she really introduced me to the world of kind of energetics and healing from the time I was like a little child, because when we would get injured, she would immediately kind of start doing her magic, and it opened my eyes to the body's ability to heal, and kind of the mind-body connection that I learned at a very young age, and I contribute that kind of eye-opening to her. So she's just an amazing woman.
And it sounds like she has a pretty diverse and eclectic background like you, bringing so much to the table when it comes to healing and energy.
She's pretty amazing woman to kind of blend the world of science and energetics into kind of one practice. Yeah.
Fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, Heidi Lindecker is Synergy Health and Wellness here in Seneca Falls, New York. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So Katie, let's flip back to you for a second and let's talk about a man who has made a difference in your life.
It's always hard to pick just one person, but I think someone who's just top of mind right now is a gentleman named Brad Van Duzen, and he is a photographer. He lives in Seneca Falls, and one thing that really impressed me was, he started taking photos at all of these sporting events and offering those photos to parents so they could have really awesome action shots of their kids playing different sports. And he's really captured amazing photos of all of these athletes. And maybe their families wouldn't have gotten to see them in action like that otherwise. And I think that that's just a really cool way to use his talent and share it with other people.
I love it. And he's married to Christine, who's right down the street from me here on Fall Street in Seneca Falls. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Heidi, how about you?
So my mentor, who is now passed into spirit, that he was absolutely one of the most amazing men I've ever met in my life. His name was Bob Duggan, and he was the co-founder of Thai Sophia Institute, which is now known as Maryland University of Integrative Health. And so what I really learned from him, which transformed my practice in working with him, is that he teaches, he really embraced the idea that upset is optional, and that really all disease and illness begins with upset. And that really is has been a transformative concept for me, and really understanding the body and its symptoms and how wise it is. And learning how to listen to that is really the foundation of my practice. So I learned some really amazing lessons from him, and he kind of taught me how my own symptoms had really begun with upset. So yeah. I could go on for an hour about exactly how I learned that, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of it.
I'm sure Katie and I could probably share parts of our own journey that would relate to that too. So, but next I want to share maybe somebody, an emerging entrepreneur that you know, or a business in the area or something like that, that would be out and about in the community. Now, keep in mind, I like to think of out and about as sort of a loose term. So I have featured people who aren't anywhere in our region, right? But they can still impact our region because we can access them through technology. So Katie, if you want to start, someone that you would like to feature for out and about this week.
I went totally blank. Give me a minute. How about Heidi? If you have one, you can jump on.
Sure. I know. Believe me, I'm not usually on the spot. I'm a little. Can I mention two?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So one local. So I'll mention one local is obviously Geneva Street Yoga.
Yeah.
So, which is how you and I, that's how we met, Melissa, is they had an open house there, and Lisa Genovese, who's been running, Geneva Street Yoga, she's fantastic, and she's been doing a lot for the community. So just wanted to mention her. And the distant contact would be Julia Romano, and she has been doing amazing work with what am I trying to say? Postpartum depression. in women. And so she's by training, she's a yoga instructor. She owns a yoga studio in the DC area, but she's been doing kind of this practice on her own. And she's also a trained yoga therapist. And so she works with individuals, I think both online and in person, and really focuses on kind of postpartum depression and how to kind of move forward. So yeah, she's
awesome.
Yeah, she's truly amazing individual.
Thank you. I have a few people I would love to connect her with.
Yeah, she's great.
Katie?
So I guess it's going to be probably just a Van Dusen day. So I think the person who comes to mind is Christine Van Dusen. So I mentioned Brad, her husband, earlier, but Christine just recently announced that she was expanding her business and taking over yet another storefront on Fall Street in Seneca Falls. And she's been a really great partner with me when I was fundraising for Boston. She made really awesome gift baskets that I sold raffle tickets for to raise money for my charity bib. We, as a company, buy gift baskets for silent auctions for different charity events that we support, just because her work is so beautiful. So she makes jewelry, and then she also has a whole, and Heidi, you look like you're a scarf lover like me. She has a whole bunch of really great scarves.
Yes. Cool. Good.
I have too many scarves, but there's never enough, really. So she has a really great boutique with fun, warm things. So she would be my entrepreneur shout out.
I'm excited to check it out.
I love it. Yeah. So she is expanding into where Blossoms by Cosentino was. So she'll be in her space, then through the corner, through the holidays. So that's exciting.
Great.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Well, then let's wrap up with some ideas and inspiration, if you will, ladies. And I love having you both here because I can't wait. I would love to host in the coming months some meet and greet kind of nights with people who've been on the show. And I'd also like to infuse that with some of the work that I'm doing as community liaison for Finger Lakes Women, so that we can bring together people from all different backgrounds, but who in spirit and from soul sense, definitely need to be connected. So
good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
So we've got marketing at the table right now. We've got health and wellness at the table right now, but it all works. It all comes together in so many beautiful ways. And I think at the heart of everything, with the people who I've brought on our show, is really the concept of community, right? So even the business that you mentioned, Heidi, Yoga at Geneva Street, that's Lisa's whole vision, right? It's like bringing people together around all different kinds of concepts and causes. So
yeah.
So how about some ideas and inspiration to wrap up with today? Katie, you want to kick it off?
So I would just urge people to take advantage of the local farmers markets and make sure that you're stocking up on stuff. The season's not over. There's tons of awesome squash. There's still kale and spinach and of course apples. And I just bought 1.5 bushels of grapes over the weekend and made, so it's like 40 quarts of grapes that I'm making grape jam with. But there's just so much beautiful locally grown produce that everyone should just stock up and eat healthy.
I love it.
Yeah, I love that idea. Yes, I mean, okay, so I'm gonna dovetail off of what you just spoke about and say this is actually a fantastic time of year, not only to go to the farmers markets, but to really use this time of year to harvest and kind of save things through so that you have them throughout the winter. So great time to be canning and freezing, and also really diving into making some really unique things like shrub. I have a great recipe that I can share for shrub, which is kind of it's not a fermented drink. It reminds me of kind of like kombucha, kind of similar taste. But it can be added into water to kind of flavor water. But it's really, a great kind of thing to make now that you'll have for a while. And things like, using kind of herbs that will soon be dying back. We can be making like infused oils for salad dressing. So yeah, it's a good time of year to kind of take advantage of stocking up on nutrition for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. You ladies
Awesome.
are both speaking my language today. I did some of that yesterday, and I'll be doing that today as soon as we get off this call.
Yeah.
I still have so much to work with from the farmers markets from previous weeks, and then can't wait to pop into both Seneca Falls and Geneva this week and see what's going on. And just a quick memory is one of the first times I talked to Heidi about stopping by her house was the first time I learned that if you stop by, she may be out foraging.
Yes.
There's all kinds of herbs and wonderful things right on her property. And so, Katie,
So
one day you'll get a chance to see that.
this
Awesome.
is the time to be harvesting. Yeah. So, and actually, I'm happy to host, the event that you're speaking of at my house. If
Oh, that would be great.
I'd be happy to offer that. Yeah.
Thank you, Heidi.
Sure.
I appreciate it. All right, ladies. Well, I know time is of the essence. I'm so grateful for both of you for popping on here today. I can't wait for where the show is going. Starting in January, we'll be moving to greater frequency, and I look forward to some interesting changes. And again, we'll get some of these in-person connections going so that the show creates something beyond the message we're putting out to the world one time. So thanks, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
Yeah. Nice
Sounds
meeting
good.
you, Katie.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everybody. So there we have it. Katie McIntyre and Heidi Lindecker, two of the guests from earlier this year on the Melissa Killeleagh Show. One thing that you may have noticed, and maybe not, but when I refer to the show, I often refer to it as our show, right? Because I totally see this as being a communal sort of experience, which is why I'm sure I originally really connected deeply with Katie McIntyre. So my friend and also now business partner, so stay tuned. But we definitely have a deep connection over all things community, right? Bringing people together over lots of different causes. And then Heidi and I connected over our health and wellness journeys at an open house, as she mentioned, at Yoga at Geneva Street. And she's just been a beautiful friend and a lovely inspiration for all things health and wellness. And as you may have heard, she is offering to host a networking event for people from our show from the past year, and obviously anyone else who comes on board. So I'm excited about that. She's got a beautiful house out on Black Book Road, and we'd love to have some people out there and just continue to share the message, right? And what's the message? So this podcast was born about a year ago, although I'd say it was much longer before that, where I just had the idea of wanting to share great news, like share the wonderful things going on in the Finger Lakes. We can turn on the news all the time and see the things that are falling apart in the world around us. But when we choose to tune in and to turn our antenna to all things inspirational, motivational, and just the great work that people are doing out and about in the community, there's so much, right? There's so much. So next, we have a few more people who are on over the past year. We have Janelle Petrosino and Alexis Pierce, who, interestingly enough, they were aired at the same time, although Alexis was in here in the studio, and Janelle was a pre-recorded interview. But here's the thing. These two ladies, what I love about them is that they are both incredibly driven by the idea of living out your life's purpose, right? Alexis is truly a guide and a coach to help people do that, and Janelle is doing it. And in the interview, she actually stood up and showed us she's, I believe, 38 weeks pregnant right now. So love to hear from the two of them now what their feedback is on women who make the world a better place and men who make a difference. All right, everybody. We're here with a couple of guests who have been with us over the past year on the Melissa Killeleagh Show. We have Alexis Pierce and we have Janelle Petrosino. And if you didn't get to see their particular podcast, they were actually featured together. Check it out. Go back, do a quick search on YouTube, and learn a little bit more about these ladies. Because what we're going to do today is we are going to share all of the segments of the show that we normally cover, but we're going to cover from their perspective in a nice, quick, zippy fashion. So, ladies, thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you.
Super fun for an anniversary kind of podcast, right? Been doing this for a year now. And so the first thing I want to do is just start with the first segment we've done on the show is women who make the world a better place. And so Alexis, if you want to kick it off with a woman who has done that in your life, I think that'd be great.
All right. Well, it's hard to narrow down because luckily I surround myself with pretty amazing women. But actually, I'm gonna point all the fingers right back at you because
man, girl.
Well, it was my first thought when I heard about this, and I just thought, what a better example. And anybody who's listened to this really will understand because they've interacted with you, they've heard you, they've realized the depth of your commitment to other people and to the community. But the reason I want to say you make the world a better place is because of how vulnerably you show up for yourself and then share those lessons with other people. That's such a brave and powerful path to take that it really changes people just to interact with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm totally receiving it right now. Normally I would say some stupid thing that would deflect the comment, but I'm hearing you. So thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Janelle, how about you, woman?
Oh,
that made your world a better place.
That one was hard. It's going to be hard to beat because I couldn't agree more. I mean, you've had such an influence on my life the last few years, so thank you for that. And Alexis, that was spot on. I'm going to have to go with my mom, though. I think that she has made the world a better place because she is constantly putting other people at the forefront of every aspect of her life. Literally, she has struggled with rheumatoid arthritis for the last 7 years, and it hasn't stopped her at all to be there for our entire family through thick and thin. She's the best grandmother in the world. And this past year, I went through so many different things that were really difficult, and she never stopped supporting me through it all. Infertility journey, autoimmune disease. A couple of years ago, my husband almost died, and she never left my side through all of that. And I think it's just a really special relationship when you are somebody's daughter, but you're also somebody's friend and support line in so many ways. So shout out to my mom, Joan Camp, for being an amazing woman for this world.
Awesome. And not only does she show up, but she shows up with a big old smile on her face too.
She does. And she's so cute.
All right. So thank you, ladies. It's going to take me a little while to process Alexis, so I'll share the questions later. But in the meantime, I would love to know also a man who has made a difference. I know you probably both have many, but who stands out? Who's the first person who comes to mind? Alexis?
I didn't have anybody in mind until you just asked that question. And the person who jumped to mind is named John Schumacher. And he was my yoga teacher, one of my yoga teachers in DC when I first started getting into yoga. And he leads the Iyengar studios in the Washington, D.C. area. And one of the things that really impacted me about John was his strength of being. Like so many of us are afraid to hold really strict lines and be kind and be funny and be warm. And he was really the first person I saw do all of that at once. And that made such an impact on me because, Iyengar yogis, if you don't know, they're really strict. They're really strict and they want to do things very particular ways. And he's the first person I met who stood in that particularness and said, this is the way it's going to be. And I promise you, it's a gift for you. I'll tell you what the gift is. You won't understand it for a long time, but I'm still sticking with that. And then had a good sense of humor and all of those things. So it was really, I guess for me, probably like very good boundaries at some point in my life. It was like a growing up of sorts, and that made a big impact on me.
I love it. I love it. And I do know the strictness of the Iyengar world. Yes. All right, Janelle, how about you? Who's a man who's made a difference?
I gotta stick with family again. I'm sorry, but it would be my husband, Paul. In 2013, as I mentioned before, he went through a really difficult time. He ended up having to have brain surgery and beat all odds. At one point, we weren't really sure what the outcome was going to be, but he made it through that time without anything to show for it. He's still the same guy, except one of the reasons why I'm talking about him is that he took his second chance at life and he made the most of it. And he is a really, he works hard and he's really busy, but he has been able to completely change his health around. He just recently hit his 100 pounds lost mark, and he has been completely just like such a role model for myself and my daughter throughout this past year, just seeing him grow through that time, and just overall being such a amazing role model for busy men out there who maybe don't have enough time to do all the things that, they want to do to be healthy. He's proven that you can really take life and, make the most out of second chances. And I really just admire him for keeping me healthy during this pregnancy.
I love it. And if anyone hasn't watched your story or seen his pictures before and after, my gosh, go to Janelle's Facebook page, friend her, just learn more about what's going on for Paul over these past couple of years, because it's been inspirational even for someone standing on the sidelines. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, we'll wrap up. I mean, we probably have enough ideas and inspiration just in those two shares, right? Talking about the women who make the world a better place and men who make a difference. But let's wrap up with just a quick, even if it's just a one-liner, what is an idea or some inspiration that you would love to leave our viewers with today? Alexis, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm like a broken record on this, but I think that the best thing we can do to feel good and then bring the best of ourselves to other people is to seek out what makes us happy. And when you come from a space of joy, then you fill your own cup. And when your cup runneth over, as we've all heard in one verse or another, when your cup runneth over, you can give without resentment and without attachment. And so it seems like a silly thing to look for things that make you happy, but it's the most important thing you can do.
Right. I love it. So I have to tell you, my home office right now, I don't like the backdrop, but I had to turn my desk to do what it's doing right now. I'll show you later after we're done with the recording, because my desk feels like Carrie Bradshaw looking out over her street in Sex and the City. But anyways, all right. Yeah, ideas and inspiration, lady.
Honestly, just that to always remember that comparison's the thief of joy, and that it's really important to be authentic and, to believe in yourself, even when it comes to things that maybe seem outside of your comfort zone or that develop fear within you, because you can really honestly do anything that you put your mind to. And my favorite quote, from Jen Sincero is, love yourself and life becomes a party. And it's just proven to be so true in my own personal journey. So it all starts from within, and that's my message.
I love it. And mine is just being here with both of you and saying to the world, surround yourself with people like this, right? It just makes my heart so full to know that both of you in very different ways are leading people through their journey in this life, and showing them the best of themselves and bringing that out in human beings who are out there changing the world. So thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. And there you have it. We heard from Janelle Petrosino and Alexis Pierce, two very inspiring women who are certainly making the world a better place. Both of them have touched my life in incredible ways. I think Alexis is a wonderful leader in the world of really helping people see their gifts and to live from that place, right? And so she was kind of wrapping up talking about the whole concept of joy. Like when we can find more ways to bring joy to our own lives, then we bring it to everything else, right? To the people in our lives, to our experiences, everything. And Janelle, if anyone in the area is looking for a fitness coach, whether it's online or not, she's amazing. Although you can catch her for 5 more minutes before she has a baby, and she's going to be distracted for a little bit, I'm sure. So I'm so grateful that these women all took the time to share some reflections on, their responses to what we've been talking about over this past year. It's our 1-year anniversary show here on the Melissa Killeleagh Show. For 1 year, we've been talking about women who make the world a better place, men who make a difference, all things out and about in the community of the Finger Lakes, and ideas and inspiration to leave you with. So today, we're actually going to chat in the studio between Jim and I in just a moment. And before we do that, I just want to let everyone know we may get interrupted here by one of our Mr. Rogers Neighborhood folks down the hall. If you haven't met her, Peg Houst-Arlist is a professional in the field of psychology, counseling, many things health and wellness. She also organizes a group that's called Flavor, which is the Finger Lakes area vegan organization. She and I are going to be partnering up to do some events around this new technique that she's been layering into her business that's all around the concept of fear to freedom. So if we don't have a visit from her, just stay tuned on that. You'll be hearing more about that in the future. And in the meantime, just a quick reflection on this year that we've had here in the studio with over 25 guests, with 15 people in studio. It's our 11th episode today. One of the things that has happened as a result of this is 2 of my guests are stepping forward, and they're going to be hosting their own podcast here. So stay tuned for Katie McIntyre and Gwen Weber-McLeod, who are going to be bringing some amazing messages to the Finger Lakes area and beyond through this beautiful opportunity to partner and collaborate with Jim Sinacropi here in Finger Lakes One TV. And so why I want to share that with you, and also share it, like several people have sent me messages and cards and things like that. You know, when I'm sending out my thank yous for people to join me on the show, because I love sharing their story and I love hearing their story and getting to know what inspires them and motivates them even better than I already do. I feel like, I'm the one who's being graced by their presence, and I've been getting all kinds of gratitude and thanks. One of the things Joanna Pavlak said to me, was around the concept of like, thank you for putting the message forward, right? Because it gave me the courage to do the same. So I'm not saying that to impress our viewers, right? I'm saying that to impress upon you the possibility, right? If there's like a message that you have to get out there in the universe, don't wait. We get one life. Right? One life. And if there's something that you want to share, a message that you've got to say, just trust that someone out there is waiting to hear it. So, if it's using a space like this to be able to do that, then get in touch with Jim Sinacropi. They're always looking for great ideas and for people who want to host podcasts like this. So, all of that being said, Jim and I are now going to share a little bit about the women who have made our world a better place and men who make a difference in our lives. And then we'll wrap up with some ideas and inspiration for you all. So, Jim, thanks for offering to be part of our anniversary show today.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
Good.
I would love to know, Jim, as I was like preparing for today, I realized that I really want to know, because we have shared some mentors, role models, like people in the community who inspire us. We definitely share some of those people, but like, I want to know who is like the woman who has made your world a better place.
Well, I was certainly lucky to have incredible grandmothers on both sides, my dad and my mom's side.
Awesome.
Different. My grandma on my father's side, my grandma Sinacropi, was one of 10 sisters and 3 brothers.
Wow.
She was one of the younger ones. And they all lived here in Seneca Falls on the same street, basically.
Oh, wow.
And then her sisters and herself married another, usually an Italian guy, and stayed in Seneca Falls and had kids. So I'm related to so many people, like blood related.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Like you are Seneca Falls.
Yeah. Yeah, she was amazing. I used to love to spend time just over her house. She would cook dinner for our family every Sunday. And I would a lot of times go over early and watch football games and watch her cook. And And yeah, she was, her husband died, my grandfather died in 1976, I want to say, when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I still remember him a little bit, but, at that time you don't realize what it must have been like for her to go on, with her life after her husband, because especially the old school.
Right.
Italians are really, the way it kind of was back then, was she never had a career. She had 3 sons, and she kept the house and cooked the food, and but in a lot more of a hearty way than you might think. Like, they would hunt, they'd bring home ducks, and she would clean the ducks,
Right.
And so she never got to travel a lot. So I remember she would go on some trips later on in her life, which was something she never really got to do. Not that she complained about it or was oppressed or anything. It's just kind of the way it was back then. The worlds were smaller. Like, she never had a driver's license.
Yeah.
And so I can also remember walking downtown with her to, go to Rose Francis or whatever stores downtown, to shop and get things. But so she was a great role model. And then on my mother's side, my grandmother, Helen Ireland, was, she was more like proper, like even to the day, even to the end of her life, she would always dress herself every day. You know what I mean? Like,
Like to the nines.
Yeah, so if she wasn't going out of the house, she would even get dressed. If she was going out of the house, she was getting dressed, like really dressed, makeup, doing the hair, jewelry, all that stuff. And she was just, and she, I think, had a way to will things to work out for people she cared about. She was really religious and also superstitious at the same time, which is kind of a contradiction, right? If you're religious, you shouldn't believe in superstition. But if I was driving in the car with her and I was driving and a black cat crossed our path ahead of us, she would beg me to turn around, But she was also an amazing cook, in a different way. She cooked a lot of different things, where my grandma Sinacropi cooked like the staples, the Italian staples, over and over and over again in only a way that she could. My other grandma, my mother's mother, cooked all sorts of different things. So we would go over to dinner at their house every Tuesday night, and it was always a treat. So they both were really family oriented, and with them being gone now, it's amazing how less often our extended family gets together, because it was always surrounding them.
Right.
But
they're like the center of the whole universe.
But they were obviously, for me, great role models, and they thought the world of me. And so they were both probably the greatest female role models in my life, I'd say.
Awesome.
Along with my mother, too. My mother was pretty good, too. Good mother. I really got lucky with the whole...
With the women in your life, yeah.
Yep.
I love it. So I would definitely say my mother. You were just sharing that yours would be on that list as well. My mom was actually so young. She was 16 when she found out that she was going to have me, right? And she was so brave and so courageous. She decided that she wasn't going to tell my dad because she was just going to do this on her own.
So she was still like a junior in high school, sophomore in high school?
Yeah, so she had to double up her junior and senior year in order to be able to finish school before I came along. Yeah. But she never told my father because in her mind, like, she had the support of my grandparents, and so, she felt like, why am I gonna like muck up, both of our lives, if you will.
Right.
So that led to its own interesting adventure.
Well, she never told until when?
I met my dad when I was 21. Yeah. So he got that phone call.
Oh, so you were the one who eventually told your dad not?
Yes. Yeah.
So she just didn't, and she didn't see him again?
No.
So, okay.
No.
So that's how I was wondering how she was able to hide the pregnancy.
Yeah. They just parted ways, and that was that. There was nothing, there was no like negative, fight or argument.
She did him a favor in effect then to I guess that sounds kind of bad, but you're saying that she didn't want to ruin his life
Right.
as a young 16-year-old.
Right.
So she was, I guess that's wrong to say as a favor, but it would.
No, but in a way it kind of is, and that's how I viewed it. I mean, I had a lot of friends who were like, aren't you so frustrated and angry?
Did he ever view it as not being a favor? Was he like angry that, well, how could you not tell me that?
No. The only thing he ever had a hard time with was like, how do I figure out how to be a father to a 21-year-old? Because he didn't have any children. He actually didn't have kids until I was in his life for a number of years. So I have 2 little half brothers who are like.
Well, that's worth the connection in itself, right?
Yeah. And the introduction to, I have a really small family on my mom's side. My dad is kind of like your family. Mm-hmm. And I have like 49 cousins on that side who I've yet to meet like most of them, but I have a very special relationship with one of them, and that was worth everything, right? Did
you ever get mad at your mom for like not letting you know your father from an early age?
No. My grandfather stepped in and he did the work, right?
So you had that father figure.
Yeah.
Did your mom ever? How did your mom explain this to you when you got to be like 4 or 5 or 6 years old?
Oh my gosh, you don't even want to go there. So like the stories that I heard, I was born in a Cabbage Patch. I was Elvis's baby. I don't know. There was all kinds of fun things, right? I think I was a little bit of an old soul when I was a kid because I spent so much time with grandparents and great grandparents. So I knew something was amiss, but I didn't quite know what because I had that strong fatherly presence from my grandfather. It was once we were like out on our own that it kind of clicked for me, like when we moved out of my grandparents' house and here, my mom, so back to why I chose her as, the woman who makes my world a better place. She just worked so hard. She's worked so hard her entire life to make sure that she could provide everything she possibly could. But when we moved out on our own and it was just her and I, that's when it was like clear, like, wait a second, other people have dads who live with them. Yeah. And I'm ashamed to say that, like, I don't think I really thought about it until I was like 12. And at that point, I had such good relationships with my friends, my girlfriends. So Heather Sterniolo, hopefully she gets a chance to watch this, and a few other friends, like their dads became my dads. So her father, Alan Sterniolo, he was definitely a dad in my life for sure. It took me until getting ready to go off to college that I really, really started to deeply question. Like when you get into that sort of deep philosophical, like how much of this comes from my mom, what comes from my dad.
You know where you came from and why certain things are in you the way they are, and genetics,
Yeah, absolutely. So we connected, and it's been a journey ever since. But I will say with my mom, so many people who are watching the show know, that I've transitioned over the past 10 years. I was in finance for 10 years and then went full-time into network marketing a couple of years ago. And I remember starting my business and my mom literally was like, really? This is what you're going to do? It was one of those things like, people still had the stereotype quite often of, this was the kind of business that stay-at-home moms did, or people who couldn't get a job. And I was gainfully employed, and I had, great track record and had my master's degree and all that kind of stuff. And so she really kind of stood on the sidelines, like with her arms crossed, like what's happening here. And I have to say, like over these 10 years in my business, she's the person who will stand up now and say, like, look, if you don't know that my daughter was born to do what she does, you don't know my daughter, right? Like that's her perspective on things now. And she's the greatest Gaga to Jack. That's what he calls her. We say Lady Gaga's in the house. She comes out to the Finger Lakes once a week from Buffalo just to spend the day with him and have time to spend with him. But we actually go back there a lot now too. So my mom, for sure, she taught me perseverance. She taught me determination, fearlessness, even though she'll tell you that I inspire her, because when I finished college, I just packed up 2 bags and, flew to California and moved there. But she taught me that fearlessness, right? Because I couldn't imagine, like, I have days now that I struggle with a 17-month-old, and I'm 40. So imagine being, 18 years old with, an almost 2-year-old running around. It's like, it's incredible. So I'm so proud of everything that she's accomplished in her life. All right, so next we're going to talk about a man who's made a difference. So back to you, Jim.
Oh, man, a man who's made a difference. We didn't talk about this beforehand. This is like on the spot.
I know. You're on the spot. I'm notorious for putting you on the spot.
I've had a ton of great role models in my life, all across the board. But, I've also been lucky with, family. Like I said, my grandfather on my father's side died when I was young. But my other grandfather on my mother's side was just an incredible guy, and he had a sort of an interest in things, and just a general disposition and demeanor of steadiness and happiness with being alive, that I think certainly rubbed off on me. And my father's probably the most reasonable guy in the world. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, a friend of mine said, all men become their fathers at some point, and I think that's kind of true in a way. But I can't name just one. My uncles, my father's brothers, are both different but positive, and I've had even just growing up in Seneca Falls with so many relatives, and I played a lot of golf and worked at the golf course, and there was a bunch of great role models down there. I've had a lot of support, in my life. I almost feel spoiled in that regard, is I've had no shortage of people rooting for me or helping me, whether it be a man or a woman, a male or female. And I think that's one of the reasons why I still like living around here. I like to go live around here where I know people,
right.
And they know me, and they know me from when I was little, and I know them. I've known them my whole life, and
there's something to be said for small towns, for sure.
Yeah, that's always appealed to me. I like to visit other places, but I like to live in a place where where I feel at home. Yeah. So
it's like Cheers.
Yeah, kind of.
Where everybody knows your name.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't name. I could name 100 men who have been positive role models. So I guess I'd stick with my dad and my grandfathers. Unfortunately, I didn't get to know my other grandfather as well. But yeah.
I love it.
Male role models within my family certainly probably have had the biggest impact. And it's not only that, but like at a certain point, as a young man, you realize I need to start to become what those guys are. You know, I need to act like they do, and in kind of
start to shoulder some of that responsibility.
Yeah, conduct yourself in a way that they would approve of, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. They set the bar.
You put me on the spot?
Yeah.
I didn't know either of those questions were coming. I thought we were just going to reminisce about the past year of shows.
Oh my gosh, we can do that too. Really quick though, I will share the man who I too have had many men who've made a difference in my life, and my grandfather goes without saying because he was the dude who stepped up and like did the work, right? My grandfather was amazing, but I have had like these incredible male role models / like father figures who have stepped in at many different points on my path. The one who stands out to me the most, though, which is really, really interesting kind of story. When I moved to California, so I was just saying how I literally sold everything I had, packed up 2 bags, and moved. I had an appointment with AmeriCorps. but I didn't have employment. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have anything else, right? I just knew that I was going to be in San Francisco, and that was it. So I flew out there, and I attempted to live in a hostel for a while, which is not really appropriate, right? It's for traveling.
Yeah.
Right. So it was really hard to find any place to live because it was 1999. So we're like in the middle of like some serious .com explosion, all that kind of stuff going on out there, which I knew nothing about. I didn't even have a cell phone. So I ended up at a certain point getting kicked out of the hostel. And I slept on the beach one night. And the man who ran the department at San Francisco State, where my AmeriCorps position was going to be, he actually him and his wife had a daughter who was about my age who had just moved out and moved long distance as well. So they offered me like basically my own wing to their house. Wow. And they lived in Rockridge in between Berkeley and Oakland. And so it was really a great place to live. Lots of like open air markets and fun kinds of things. So it's how I got to know California. So yeah, Jerry Eisman is his name. And he was a computer science professor, and he ran the department that was civic engagement. And he helped to spearhead the service learning movement on campus and throughout the California school system. So really taking kids like from their desks, from their scholastic experience and putting them out in the field, getting real life experience. So if they're going to learn computer science, they're going to learn it by teaching a kid how to use a computer, or they're going to learn math by tutoring students in math. So it's so much fun working with him, and he really did step up to the plate and help me there, so I wasn't sleeping on the beach. But he also became a really strong professional colleague and mentor for me as well. So, all right. So last, we're going to wrap up with some ideas and inspiration. We've already shared some things about out and about in the Finger Lakes community because we've got our neighbor down the hall, Peg House Starless, who unfortunately was unable to stop by, but I'm sure you'll be hearing from her on a subsequent show. So what I want to talk about for ideas and inspiration, Katie McIntyre, during the interview earlier, mentioned Angela Didabo, who is the creative director over at Auburn Public Theater here in the Finger Lakes. And I met Angela at the 2017 induction for the National Women's Hall of Fame. We actually sat next to each other, so there are no coincidences. And within a week, she invited me to participate in this 12-week guided course study of The Artist's Way, which I'm sure many viewers know. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron is a book that's really intended to help creative people sort of unlock their creative or unleash their creative side. So I'm in the midst of birthing a book that I know is inside of me. And so she invited me to come be part of this. And as part of this 12-week journey, we have all kinds of reading and reflection and exercises and things. So if there's one thing that I could share with the viewers that has like changed my life, well, it's two things really, two practices that Julia Cameron advocates for. One is a process called morning pages. So you get up every morning, and before you can do anything at all, which is really challenging when you have a 17-month-old, you write 3 pages of whatever's on your mind. That is really incredible. It's really incredible to just get those creative juices flowing. The second thing is going on what's called an artist date. So once a week, you set aside 2 hours and you take yourself on a date. Now, again, 17-month-old, many of my dates have been in my bed, right? Just relaxing, giving myself scheduled time to relax, because that's like unheard of for most moms, right? For most parents, really, for most busy people, period. So that's been really lovely. Although a couple times I have gone out once down to the canal to just sit and enjoy being outdoors with a cup of coffee. And I've got some other fun dates scheduled coming up, so I'll share those on subsequent shows as well. But one of the exercises we did last week in our class, so Jim, I want you to answer this with me, right? we had to come up with, and I'll only make you do 3 instead of 5. We had to come up with 5 careers that we would have pursued if we had been more bold or courageous, right? So come up with 3 things. I'm going to write down 3 really quick, and then I'll share and you share.
Well, I can share right now. I mean, I don't know. This current career I thought took a little courage.
Absolutely.
I always wanted to be like a sports broadcaster, a sports journalist. I loved working on the golf course, and I thought about becoming a golf course superintendent. I was a little concerned about the earning potential there, but I think I would have. I know I used to love getting up at 5:30 in the morning and driving out on a greens mower onto the golf course as the sun came up. I don't know if that would have stuck with me for a full career, of still getting that same feeling. But I thought about doing that, and I love the game of golf. I love playing golf, and I was never good enough to even think about playing professionally. But a part of that's because you just didn't realize when you were younger what it took. And I wonder if when I was really young, if I understood what it might have taken to give it a shot, if I would have put in the amount of work. But so those would be my 3.
I love it. I love it for a very particular reason, which I'll share with you, and that'll be the inspiration we leave our viewers with today. So my 3 today, because sometimes they change depending how I feel, right? 1 is a writer, and it's still going to happen. Number 2 is something along the lines of a travel guide. Like, I could really spend my life just traveling. A lot of people get really stressed out by travel. I even love the process of being in the airport and talking to people. I love every piece of traveling, like every detail, every aspect. So, so that's another one. But again, it can still happen. But number 3 is probably the most unique for me. I went to undergraduate school for psychology, and the idea that I had back then was that I would end up getting into forensic psychology. I wanted to work with like the FBI or something like that to really be able to profile and all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing. When we ask ourselves that question, so viewers, ask yourself, like, what would you have been, right? You're on the right track when your current situation, your current position, like, pops into your mind immediately, right? Because I feel the same way, Jim, that you feel about doing this. Like, it takes courage to be a stay-at-home mom. It really does. It's incredible. I feel like I'm braving the wilderness every morning that I wake up. It's Jack's world. But also when you are doing things that honor all of those things. So the fact that you spend time on a golf course, the fact that you are out and about in the hustle and bustle of the sports world in our area, right? Like you're a central part of that.
Well, I believe that one of the reasons I said it's courageous to start a company and do what I did. Not that courageous. And given the fact that I want to spend my time doing stuff I enjoy, and this was a way to
do that.
Do it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's beautiful, and it goes back to what Alexis was talking about earlier on the show. Like, the more we can do things that bring us joy, the more fulfilling our lives are, and we stop looking for the external things to validate the choices that we make, and really just like using that internal navigation system.
You're out of time.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. But the last thing that I want to say is, like, when you write down your list, do something that is part of those careers, right? Do something that is part of them. So if you say writer, like, go write. If you say it would be a travel guide, like, go take a trip, even if it's a day trip in the Finger Lakes. Whatever it is that lights you up and sets your heart on fire, go do that. and we'll see you next month.